Hey, hey, Georgia, what's on your mind today?
Hey,
Hey,
Henderson.
hey, how you doing?
Wow. It is another year.
Hey,
Thanksgiving.
no doubt.
Yes, for those of you who celebrate colonial holidays, it is Thanksgiving and I'm excited to be here. It is Thursday
Yeah, no
and we
doubt.
continue to run the show even on holidays. So
Hey,
that
somebody
doesn't
got to
slow
do
us
it.
down, right?
Somebody got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. So, anyway, I bring you greetings. I'm Georgia F. Allen, and this is GA for Justice every Thursday at 12 noon. And we are so excited to be with you today. Um, we had a great show last week. We talked about elections over. Now, what? This week, we're going to keep delving a little bit into that. And talk a little bit about civil rights transformation because we have come through a long road. And first and foremost, I always like to say thank you to Mr. Henderson Vaughn, to our own Captain 85, aka the Dream Maker, who
Hello.
opens up the airwaves week after week after week so the community can have a conversation about what is taking place right in the here and the now. And so, as always, we like to just bring our listening audience a conversation that's a little bit different than what you hear on TV 24 hours a day. And that is a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, as well as a conversation for transformation. And I want to kind of focus on transformation a little bit today, simply because there has been so much going on. I mean, of course, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have elections all the time. But what's taking place all the time as well is courts are making decisions all the time. And so, if we are going to have a true civil rights transformation, sometimes you got to step back and you got to look at what other people did and what our forefathers did and how that worked, and see if we can't transform that into some of the things that we're trying to do in today's time and kind of mesh those two together and make them stronger. And and I always like to take a look back when I see these things happening, when I see courts ruling, and many times after our forefathers has had such a fight, to change things for the better on behalf of us, on behalf of our children, our grandchildren, and then we see these courts making decisions that just absolutely take things back to almost further back than where they were even before people like Dr. King and others went before our government and petitioned our government to make some definitive changes.
Yeah.
And when I take a look at that, I ask myself, what is it that we're not doing? I ask myself, are we working in a manner that is going to make these transformation things permanent, or are we going to constantly be going back and forth? So today we have a law in our favor, tomorrow the law is erased. Today we have judges and we have elected officials who understand and can empathize. I don't want you to sympathize with me. I want you to empathize with what I have gone through and then make decisions based upon that. Because anybody can be sympathetic. Folks are sympathetic when they hear that somebody got shot on the street. But when you empathize, you literally put yourself in that person's place. And then you look at ways that you can change and transform something so that they don't have to ever feel that way again, because you know personally, because you empathize with it. And so you feel what they have felt and you know what it feels like. So, with that being said, I do have some opening comments, because in our community, we have some of the most powerful institutions in our communities. We we have lived in this nation for centuries, and our issues and the concerns that we have, we're not using our institutions in a transformative way. And we need to step back and take a look at these institutions and begin to come together and use them transformatively. Because if you recall, during the civil rights movement, back in the day, as I always like to say, we were about 90% in sync all throughout the nation. We worked and operated in a consistent manner, in a unified manner that was working in our best interests. And somewhere along the way, we got excited about having access to this and access to that, and buying a new car and buying a house and living in certain neighborhoods. And we got so excited about those things, we fell asleep at the wheel. So we need to wake you up, because there needs to be a transformation, because we are not going to win if we continue to go few steps forward and 50 steps back. But we were in sync as it pertained to the issues and concerns of our community, our family, and our collective well-being. We were in sync during the Dr. King era. We were in sync. We were in sync during the Adam Clayton Powell, during the time of, Mayor Washington and many of the people who came before us. We were in sync, and we kind of lost that. And so I'm hoping today, as I share with you with regards to civil rights transformation, we need to transform again, because we're going backwards. We're not going forward. And again, we have some of the most powerful institutions right here in our community, and we need to use them, but we got to use them correctly. We can't misuse our institutions. Our institutions, such as our HBCUs, we got to bring them together. Because when we bring our HBCUs and our fraternities and sororities together, we bring our young people together along with our seniors. Okay, we have to bring our Masons and our Eastern Stars together. Because when we bring them together, they have resources and things that are in our best interest, and they can work collectively with our youth. And so we have to bring them together. But the nuts and bolts of our community is still our barbershops, our beauty salons, our local nightclubs, and our small Black-owned businesses and restaurants. That's still our nuts and bolts. That's where you're going to find our friends and our relatives from time to time. And that's where they're going to congregate, and they're going to share, and they're going to talk to each other, and they're going to share in a way that, guess what? They may not share that at, some of these other places. So it's important that we recognize what we have as a community, and that we don't dismiss any of the things that we have in our community. And you probably say, well, why you didn't mention the churches? Why you mention our churches? Because for some reason, in our churches, we no longer have the Reverend Joseph Lowrys. We no longer seem to have the senior Reverend Martin Luther King. We no longer seem to have the junior Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we no longer seem to have people like the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, or our very own from Virginia, the Reverend Vernon Johns. And for some reason, they seem to be missing in our communities. And so for us, these things are solely missing. And so we are in a desperate need, because they are missing. Those voices are missing. We don't hear them from the pulpits like we used to, when things were so horrific that churches was being bombed on a regular basis. Now your church is there, nice and strong. You putting in new fixtures, and everything is beautification this and beautification that. But the voice has been silenced. And I say that to all of you who are listening to me, who go to church, or who may be a minister or a pastor. Jesus did not hesitate to chastise or correct. So if our public officials are behaving in manners that is contrary to the word of God, the audience, your membership, your parishioners, they need you to chastise. Because if they don't hear you chastise, they probably don't think they should either. And so it's critically important that you begin to admonish. And you probably say, oh my God, they'll take away my 501c3. They'll take away my tax this and my tax that. Well, I don't believe that. I just don't believe, I cannot believe that if I genuinely believe that God is greater than the government. God is greater than man. God is greater than the corporations. I can't believe that churches should be in fear. Now, I didn't say you had to endorse anybody, but I did say you do need to admonish when behavior is out of order. Is that a problem with you, Henderson?
No, actually, most people don't understand how the 501c came about. The 501c came about because Black Wall Street, because the Black churches was taking in the collection, and that's how they monitor the amount of money that flows through our community. So with the 501c, you have to document it, and they keep account of it. So no, they're not going to take it away, because if they take it away, then they can't. They can't control the money. You know, as they say, follow the money. The churches during that time was always working to everybody work together. That's why they had airplanes, they had their own trains, their own bus lines, their own taxis. They're like, where are they getting this money from? Then so they won't take away the 501c. Everybody's a 501c.
Everybody's a 501c3.
Yeah,
I mean, you got 501c3 for everything. Toenails.
Yeah, they didn't take Donald Trump's.
Toenails. You can have a 501c3. You just have to determine what the toenails are for.
Right.
So all these people that feel like they got to be so afraid of the government.
Yeah.
I want us as a people to stop fearing the government. Because if we see that our churches and our leaders in our churches don't fear the government, guess what? The fear of the people will also disappear.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I thought about this show today, of course it came to me when I saw a recent ruling in the 8th Circuit. Okay, the 8th Circuit is U.S. Court of Appeals that decided that we can't file lawsuits with regards to Voting Rights Act violations. And so as I read it and I read it and I read it and I read it, and I was like, wait a minute. How are you going to tell us we can't file a lawsuit? The very same people that's been screaming and yelling about somebody taking away folks' rights have decided that we the people no longer have the right to petition our government, because courts are part of the government. Okay. Many of the courts are elected. Some of the courts, people run for office and they win because of the ballot box. Okay. So let's keep it real. So if you're elected through the ballot box, hello, are you not part of the government? That's what voting is all about. So we have these people who are elected to serve on our benches throughout our country. And I'm talking to my family and my young people and friends and others who are out there who are able to listen now, or maybe you'll only be able to listen later. Maybe you can't listen right now, and that's okay, because you can always play it back later. But I'm telling you, we cannot play with this. When these courts make these decisions, even though it's not in our circuit this time, guess what? If they saw the decision come in their favor, what do you think they're going to be doing? They're going to look how they can make the next court and the next court and the next court rule the same way. So don't get lackadaisical when it comes to our civil rights. Don't get lackadaisical when it comes to us being able to petition our government with regards to our concerns. Do not get lackadaisical. And I say that to you because those of you who are from Virginia knows that in the city of Virginia Beach, we also had a lawsuit, but the judge ruled in our favor as it pertained to Voting Rights Act. But if we had been in another district, like the 8th Circuit, we are in the 4th, but if we had been in another district like the 8th, we could have been in a similar situation that states like Arkansas. Let me tell you who some of these states are. Arkansas. We're looking at North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska are all in that 8th Circuit. Let me repeat those names to you again. Arkansas. Who's the governor of Arkansas? Little Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Okay? Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Now, who was the judge on the courts that ruled in the favor of changing whether or not members of the community, or whether or not groups and organizations such as NAACP or Black Lives Matter or the Defamation League, they're saying to these groups and individuals that you no longer have the right to petition the court. It can only be petitioned by the U.S. Attorney General, who brings relatively few election-related cases each year. Very few cases does the U.S. Attorney General bring, okay, when it comes to elections, when it comes to Voting Rights Act. So now they are saying that since individuals can't bring them, groups and organizations can't bring them, and the only one that can bring them is the United States Attorney General. There are 50 states, people. Do you really believe that he has enough time to file that many lawsuits? Do you? Do you? Think about that for a moment. Savor on that for a moment. This is how important this stuff is. I know y'all probably say, well, dang, you know, she be coming there and she's talking about this stuff, and I don't know if I should vote, or I don't know. I don't know how this is going to affect me. Well, you may not be in the 8th U.S. Circuit, but you are in one of the circuits. We're in the 4th. Now, you might be in the 5th, you may be in the 6th or whatever, but you are definitely in one of the circuits as it pertains to how judges rule. Now, why is that important? Because we constantly hear that we don't know whether or not we want to vote. We constantly hear when people get elected to office, do they do anything for me? Well, let me tell you what this person didn't do for you. He didn't put a judge on the bench that will rule in your favor.
Hello.
So while you may say, well, nobody's done anything for me, well, I can assure you that somebody did something against you. Hear me loud and hear me clear. I can assure you that how presidents place people on federal benches can be to your favor or it can be to your detriment. Which one do you choose? Which one do you choose? Do you want someone who's going to select people that will work on your behalf and in your best interests? Or do you want someone in charge who will select people who will work against your wishes? Because that's what you're looking at. So for those of you who constantly complain in your barbershops and beauty salons and say, well, they ain't did nothing for me. Well, I'd rather for them to do nothing than for them to do something against me, okay? Just leave it alone. I would much rather have that than to have somebody come in and intentionally appoint people to the Supreme Court, to the appellate courts, to other federal courts and benches that is harmful to me, my family, and my well-being. Now, you can choose, because we can go vote, but you need to decide. You need to decide, are you going to work on your behalf, the behalf of your family, the behalf of your friends, or are you going to just sit there and complain in the beauty salons and the barber shops and talk about what somebody hasn't done for you when you haven't even done things for yourself? Some of you don't even vote. And not only do you not vote, you don't even volunteer to help a candidate who is trying to work in your best interest get elected to office. You just sit back and you say, well, I don't know that person. But the last I checked, there's a thing called the internet. You can Google and Bing
And
and all types of resources that you can use to find out something about these people who are running for office. So why haven't you done your own investigation? You waiting for somebody to come by and hold your hand and tell you what to do? That's not even fair to you. It's definitely not fair to your children. Because if that's the best you can do, what do you expect from them? If they haven't seen you fight and roll up your sleeves to do something in their best interest, what do you expect them to do? And then when there's another change and a new law is made that takes away some of the things that you had, then who can you blame? You can't blame your congressperson. You can't blame your senator. You can't blame your mayor or your governor or the people in your state legislature. Why? Because you didn't vote. You didn't work on anybody's campaign. You didn't do anything. You need to be transformational. You need to change outcomes, and you're not going to change outcomes sitting like a bump on a log. Another thing we got to understand, we cannot just win a battle. And I say that because in Virginia Beach, again, we had a lawsuit where the judge ruled in our favor. But in Arkansas, the judge ruled opposite and against them, which means in our city, we won a battle, but we sure enough didn't win the war, because there are battles still going on all around these United States of America. And the next time they may be coming for you. They just might be coming for you. Now, the good news is in the 6th, I believe, they also ruled similar to the courts here in Virginia. Okay, the 5th. Okay. So the Fifth Circuit decision, the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Allen v. Milligan, which originally sided with the private plaintiffs, but ultimately in the appeals process, they sided with, and Allen is not me, y'all, because I'm not in the Fifth. They ultimately they sided and upheld Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act in the 5th, 6th, and the 11th U.S. Circuit Courts of Appeals. Okay, so there have been some wins. So that means our battle was won in the 4th district. There was a battle won in the 5th, the 6th, and the 11th. But that doesn't mean that in the 1st or the 2nd or the 3rd or the 10th or the 9th that there couldn't be a different outcome. So keep in mind, these are all circuits throughout the country, and there's so many states per circuit, or so many persons per circuit, because if I'm in an area like California, I may have 2 smaller states in my circuit because California has so many people. If California had as many states in their circuit as the 8th, because the 8th, of course, had 7 states in their circuit. Well, a lot of those states don't have a lot of people. North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, they don't have a lot of people. Iowa doesn't have a lot of people. So to put 7 states in that circuit makes sense. Okay, because you have Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Well, you can do that. But if you're in California, where you have millions upon millions of people, you probably want to have, a couple of smaller states in that particular circuit. Or even a Texas. Texas may have just a couple of states along there in their circuit as well because of the number of people they have. So they try to even out. Your districts they work to try to even out the size of your districts. And that is on every level. Okay. So in my city, for instance, okay, on my city council, we have city council districts. And so because our city is over 400 and some thousand people, my districts may be larger than a city like Portsmouth, who has less than 100,000 people. So they may have 5 districts, but they are a smaller population. Okay. Whereas we have 10 districts, which would be double their size. So keep in mind, people, when we are talking about elections, districts, representation, Congress, governors, state legislature, federal legislature, they all boil down to how the districts are carved up so that we can identify districts that are winnable by people that care about what we care about. So that's where the transforming come in. If we don't have people who are willing to fight on our behalf, then things are going to remain the same. But when we go out and vote and we identify and we work with and we talk to people and we let them know what our cares and our concerns are, and we get commitments from them, then we must hold them accountable. See, a lot of times y'all vote people in office, you don't say another word to them until the next election.
Hello.
Now, is that their fault? No. It's your fault. If you don't sit here and push, because you have to push people to do sometimes things that they want to do, but sometimes you have to push them to do things they don't even want to do. And why is that important? It's important because you have to get people moving in a direction that is in your best interest. And you also have to make it clear that you're here fighting, because if they don't think you're going to fight, then they will coalesce with a group of people in elected office, and their negotiation will be more or less about what this legislators want and what they may personally want versus what their district or their constituent base wants. Okay. If no one is asking them for anything, then they can get complacent and say, well, they haven't asked me for anything. Yeah, I ran on such and such, but I haven't heard from anybody. No one's called me. No one has sent me a letter. No one has emailed me and all. And then when I reach out to them, they don't have anything to say. But I also know that there are things that I specifically want. And this guy needs my vote so he can get what he specifically wants. So what I'll do is I'll vote with him on that so that he can vote with me on this. You guys kind of see how this is working?
Hey.
You kind of see how this works? So when we have complaints against our government, and when I say we have complaints against our government, what we're looking at is when we need things to be legislated for our best interests. A road needs to go in. A road needs to be repaired. We find that we have a situation where there's a constant flooding every time it rains. It doesn't even have to rain in 1 hour and there's flooding. Well, guess what? On one level of the government or another, whether it's your local level, whether it's the state, or whether it's the federal level, somebody is responsible for ensuring that our streets and roads are not flooding. So who's responsible for letting them know what your concerns are? You. You are. You're that transformative voice that says to them, we need to have changes over here. If all of a sudden you see a spike in the crime rate, you need to identify, okay, what appears to be the reason why crime rate has spiked in this particular area. You may ride around and realize that 30% of the lights, 30% of the lighting in your area is no longer functioning, it's no longer operating. So if you don't have street lights, that might be a reason why you see a spike in crime. So who's responsible for those street lights? Then that's when you go to your local representatives and say, wait a minute, these street lights have been out. We see a spike in crime. We need you to come in and get this fixed. And you come together as a coalition and you give them a timeline. And you talk with your elected officials and you say to them that we need this fixed because we cannot afford to have people coming into our neighborhood and committing crime because they feel like this is a great place for them to do this simply because they see that the street lights are no longer functioning. And I'm doing this in a way that hopefully you can see how it can make sense no matter what city you live in, no matter what state you live in, or where you reside. You want it to make sense. And some of you guys, y'all don't ever talk to a local official on any issue whatsoever. You get up, you eat, you go to the bathroom, you go to sleep, you get up, you eat, well, you go to work. You get up, you eat, you go to work, you go to the bathroom, you eat again, and you live your life like that day in and day out. And somebody has to petition on your behalf. And when these people are out here working and rolling up their sleeves and working on your behalf, occasionally you should call up and say thank you. Because it's something you didn't even have to do yourself, but the work got done. The work got done. You didn't have to do anything. But it's also good for you to occasionally say thank you, that you were willing to do the things that maybe I'm not comfortable doing, or I don't know how to do, or what have you. But we are going to have to do some transformational things if we want to have a different outcome. I mean, when I saw the ruling, of course, I was extremely disturbed by that ruling, because I understood that in order to have a ruling like this, someone had to appoint those people to those benches. I understood that. Okay. I understood that somebody's pen and someone who served in the White House sent over some names of some judges or potential judges, some candidates, and said to their Congress and to their Senate that I want you guys, to their Senate, I want you guys to approve these folks, interview them, but really, we really don't care what they say in the interview. These are the people that we want. And if you have enough senators to make it happen, guess what? Those judges sit on the bench, be they qualified or not qualified, be they knowledgeable or not knowledgeable. And so this is why it is so very important that you no longer see voting simply as the president of the United States. Because if there's no Senate with enough numbers and no Congress with enough numbers, you're not going to get past the legislation that you want. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen. You're not going to transform anything. And don't get mad with anybody but you. Look in the mirror and get mad with you. Because in politics, it's all about addition. I hear many people out there right now screaming and yelling and crying and whining and everything about what's going on in Washington, D.C. now. Okay, the thing that's going on right now is the president is too old. The president is too old. Oh, there all these folks out here screaming and yelling about how old the president is.
Because they can see that, but they don't understand he's the one with the key to the door. That's how he can get things moving. And the other party will say, just like when he had when he did the first speech to the nation, he said, well, the Republicans are gonna stop, a Social Security. And they're like, well, we ain't said nothing about that. What did they have to do 2 months later? Start talking about cutting Social Security.
They stopped talking about stopping Social Security.
Yeah. So you Absolutely. Have to you have to have somebody there with the knowledge to know how to maneuver.
And so the same thing with how they do our budget. How they do the budget. If you got one group over here said, look, as long as we have plenty of money going to the military industrial complex and plenty of money to give to tax breaks for the very rich, the rest of the country be bam. Okay. And that's basically what they do.
Yeah.
And then they scream and yell and say, well, we want to cut taxes, but you don't ever want to cut our taxes. You never want to cut our taxes.
Yeah.
You talk about cutting taxes, but you never talk about me and my family when you're talking about cutting taxes. We also hear things like Black people keep saving America and Black people keep saving the Democratic Party. No. Black people vote to save themselves from the idiots, okay?
Hello.
So let's get this straight, because I am so tired of hearing people say Black people only vote for the Democrats and this and that and the third. No. Black people vote to save themselves from the idiots.
Yeah.
It's just that there's so many of them.
You can't get around.
We need some more numbers to stop the so-called people with a half a brain from helping idiots get in office. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the problem. We need some more people to help us keep idiots out of office. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Okay. We already understand that no one party is going to do everything that we want. Okay. That's not going to happen. There are 41.9 million Black Americans. In this country, there are over 331.5 million people in this country. 41 million people, and we got to minus out the children. We got to minus out the people who can't vote.
Yeah.
And once we do those numbers, then we have to minus out people who won't vote.
Hello.
People who won't register to vote. Once we minus out all those people, we're still outnumbered by over 100 and some million people.
Hello.
Okay? So understand that. Understand how this voting thing works. So when you have judicial systems that tell you that you're not allowed to fight for you, you're not allowed to petition your government, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem. See, the situation in America is that as a people, we have the wherewithal to know that privileged people don't believe that anything bad is going to happen to them. If they work, they're behind off using hate to mistreat persons who they believe are their enemies, when in fact they would, if they would just look in the mirror, they find out they are their own worst enemy.
Hello. Hello. Say it loud.
All we need them to do is use just a teeny tiny piece of their brain, just a teeny bit. They just might recognize that they themselves are their own worst enemy, and that the people that they have been voting for and placing in office have not been working in their best interest. And you say, well, how do you know that? Because I have a list. I have a list of what has taken place under the Biden-Harris administration. Okay? Let's because all these people say, well, they haven't done anything, Democrats don't do anything for Black people. I'm just going to read off a few of these things. Historic funding for HBCUs. Historic funding, okay? Created EOC, Economic Opportunity Coalition, which is comprised of nearly 30 private sector companies. And what do these companies do? They work with small Black businesses, and there's been $3 billion set aside for funding for Black businesses. This is under the Biden-Harris administration. Haven't been there, but think this is their third year.
Right.
And we haven't gotten to December yet. They don't start until the 20th of January. Keep that in mind.
Right.
President starts on the 20th of January. Okay, so this is the third year. The American Rescue Plan and Infrastructure Bill. So there has been money designated for infrastructure to the Black community. Now you said, well, where's the money? That's your job.
Hello.
Let me tell you how it works. The federal government sends money to the state. The state then sends money to the city. And if your lazy self ain't talking to your state and telling them how you want that money to be allocated when it comes down into your city, and then not go before city council and speak to city council about ensuring that the money goes exactly where it's supposed to go, that is not the government fault. That is your fault.
Yeah.
There's a process. And I've been trying, how many years have I been saying to the community, get a process? How long have I been saying that?
Yeah.
I didn't start saying that yesterday. I've been saying that for a minute. Okay. Also, under the Biden-Harris administration, they have pardoned all federal marijuana possession charges. All of them. Pardon all of them, okay? Also, under Biden-Harris, $127 billion in student loan debt cancellation or forgiveness, however you choose to read it.
Right.
Okay. So you say, oh, they don't do anything for us. Now, then you look at this. The share of Black workers holding a job for the first time in the history has exceeded white workers with jobs. Exceeded.
Yeah.
Never
We don't
happened
mind
before.
working. We don't mind working.
Never happened before. Okay. So obviously, with some of these investments into the community, it has created jobs. Have they created all the jobs that you want? Probably not. But guess what? There's also other programs where you can get extra training so that you can get new skill sets. Part of the problem is some of y'all don't want to go to school, even when it's a 6-week course.
Hello.
You're going to have to do some of this stuff yourself. Don't sit here and wait for somebody to do everything for you. And then keep in mind that the media is only going to show you a part of the picture. They're not going to show you the whole thing. So you're going to have to go out and investigate. I had to do it myself. Okay, when I started reading and finding and listening and pulling up information and all, and I says, okay, show me the Biden-Harris wins. I pulled it off the internet. I probably sent it out to 30, 40, 50 people, showing the jobs that was created, gun safety measures that have been put in place, recovery after the pandemic, the work that was done, manufacturing, bringing the semiconductor manufacturing back to the U.S. called the Chip and Science Act. So you can make the chips here in America. Now, some of you who are good at doing something like that, how about going to school? A lot of those things, 8-week courses, 3-month courses. Take them. Stop buying those sneakers that's $500.
Hello.
And take a $250 course.
Hello.
You got $500 to $1,000 to buy a pair of LeBron James or whoever's the latest high-profile person sneakers, but you need work. And I tell and Henderson has heard me say this before.
Yeah.
A job is a temporary resource to get you to where you want to be. So if you want to own a business, then work that job for 5 years, but save somewhere between 30 and 40% of your check.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification. That way you have the money that you need. And then the other thing is, don't quit your job before you start your business and start getting it up off the ground.
Hello.
Okay.
3 years.
Get it up off the ground so that when you slide out the door, you got something to slide into.
Hello.
Okay. Transformation. We need some transformational things going on in the community. Now, also under the Biden-Harris administration, they signed 2 racial justice executive orders. Those were orders to help us begin to balance the scales as it pertains to the injustice. Okay. He also permanently raised SNAP benefits by 30%. But guess what happens when you elect people? When you elect people, guess what? The other crew came in, and in 2021, when they when they had the House, guess what? I mean, I'm sorry, it was 2021 to 2022 because they got it back. Okay, during that period of time, Biden raised the SNAP benefits by 30%. But then when the GOP got the House back, they went back and cut them. So tell me that voting doesn't matter.
Hello.
Those of you who have been struggling because of the pandemic, those of you who have been struggling because maybe you got laid off, those of you who have been struggling because maybe someone in your family got sick and you became a caretaker, how important would a 30% increase in SNAP benefits be for you? How important would that be for you? Pretty important, I think. Under the Biden-Harris administration, there have been historic appointments of Black judges. As a matter of fact, he has appointed more Black judges than all the others combined.
Look at his cabinet.
All the others combined. And something that a lot of women have been very concerned about because of maternity health, the White House wrote a proclamation for Black Maternity Health Week to combat the Black maternity health crisis. How many people do you know of who have passed away women trying to give birth? And if they didn't pass away, they became paralyzed trying to give birth. So Harris, this has been one of the causes that she's championed for a minute. She said to the president, look, we need to focus on this issue.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, what have they done for me lately? What have they done for you since they've been in office? Because it has been ongoing. Also, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill was signed. Finally.
Hello.
Okay. The other thing that under the Biden-Harris, you see how I accidentally slipped up Harris Biden.
Hey, that's what they scared. That's what they scared of. They're not scared of they're not scared of because he's old. They know he's old. What they're scared of is he old. Who's gonna take his place? Right. Hello.
But under the Biden-Harris administration, he specifically designated money for increased security at HBCUs because of the bombings that were taking place at our historically Black colleges and universities.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are listening to me today, no one is perfect. As I shared earlier, there are over 300 million people in America, all of whom have something else that they want. So what you want to understand is you're never going to get everything. And the things that you are going to get may not come with the first bill that is written. Many times they write the first bill, it passes, the Congress changes, you add a few more members. Like I said, elections is about addition. So if you have a Senate that has only 51 votes, if you lose one or two, you don't have enough to pass a bill.
Yeah.
You don't have enough people. But if you say, wait a minute, I can do math. Let me add 10 more seats to the people who are voting in my interests.
Yep.
So get out there, do the work, add some more people, and change things, transform things, because it's really the bottom line is it's up to you. You can't get mad because things didn't work in your favor when you didn't do anything to help work it in your favor. You can't get angry because somebody wasn't able to do everything. They weren't able to do everything because they didn't have enough people to help them get it across the finish line.
Right.
Because, see, we've been on this American journey for centuries. We have seen almost every aspect of its ugliness and many of its successes. We have not always benefited from the successes, but we will never forget all the many ways that our people have contributed without the rewards or the benefits. So now I suggest to you, get out there and work to get the benefits. So this is Georgia Allen. We're coming to a close of the day's show. And again, this is GA for Justice. We are here every Thursday at 12 o'clock. And again, today's topic was the civil rights transformation. I need you guys to get involved, get busy, and be transformative in your own very own community. Thank you. And we will see you next week at 12 noon.
Always a great topic. Always a great topic. Each and every Thursday from 12 until 1. That's the one and only community activist, Georgia Allen. And I want to thank you once again for taking this spot and dedicating it to the community so that the community does have a voice even on the World Wide Web. But nevertheless, join us next Thursday and don't eat too much turkey. Until then, and don't forget to share this with other people on your social media network. Until then, thank you for listening and watching.